The next morning, with more than enough wind blowing behind us, we left our anchorage at Gruinard Bay and sailed round the back of Gruinard Island, otherwise known as Anthrax Island. And we were aiming for Ullapool. I decided to try and get to the shops on the Saturday because I wasn't sure what their Sunday trading rules were. A terrific sail, lots of wind, nice waves, lots of good surfing. Blew all the cobwebs away. And that bay is obviously known among the local gannet population as a really dodgy neighbourhood. As I sailed through there were some pretty heavily armed thugs sitting in the water, waiting to rob passers-by. So any luckless gannet that happened to catch a fish in the area was going to be pursued relentless by at least two of these great skuas, or bonksies as they're known as, until they gave up their fish. And that meant even if the gannet had already eaten the fish, it would still be harried and would be forced into yucking it up for the benefit of the skua. And so up Loch Broom to Ullapool, this here is the motorhome park that you'll pass on the way in. There's a left turn just under here and a cracking good marina just out of sight of this clip. The delights of the big city included a nice cup of coffee, a burger, bought some books, some batteries, but more importantly than all of that, for the benefit really of everybody within a radius of about 100 miles, I was able to get a shower and I was able to wash some clothes. Felt quite civilised afterwards. Of course, it didn't last, but it was good while it lasted. I wasn't able to stay in the marina for more than a couple of hours, so I motored out of the marina and then sailed up the loch a little bit and anchored sort of behind a suggestion of a headland at a place called Logie. There is actually a proper anchorage called an Akasech, which apparently means the anchorage. A better anchorage, in fact, nearer to Ullapool than where I was, but it was quite full, so I just tucked myself into some shallow water a bit further up the loch. We tacked past Corrie Point, and then past Ullapool again. It was a Viking cruise liner that had come in some point the previous day. We carried on down the loch, and the wind basically steadily increased as we headed down. By the time we passed Isle Martin on our starboard side, the sun had begun to break through, and it turned into a cracking sailing day all the way up to the Summer Isles. This would seem to be the most obvious anchorage on the island. Indeed, it's called the anchorage, so the clue is in the name, I guess. But there just seemed to be a lot of other boats in there, and also a fairly sizable fish farm. So I decided to give that one a miss. The Swiss Navy did break off and have a look in there. And I went round the top end of Tanara Moor and found myself this lovely little anchorage, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce, but I'll write it here. And I decided to pop ashore for a little bit. Well, this is a little bit odd. So from just paddled in on Maisie here, and from out there, this looked like almost like cobblestones. I wondered if perhaps someone had laid a slipway back in the day. But a closer look reveals that this, I can stand up steady, is a road of jellyfish. I had hoped to go for a little bit of a walk on the island, but the ground was so tussocky and rocky and really, really difficult to walk on. So I decided that rather than risk breaking an ankle, I'd just stand and take photos instead. Not such a fantastically sunny day the following morning, but a decent breeze, a couple of reefs in, and decided that we were going to head back south, really just to give me the best range of options of what to do while I headed south. Before we left, though, I thought we would sail through the main anchorage in the Summer Isles, which is the one that is between Tanara Beg and Eilean Fada Moor, and see what it looked like. So that is exactly what we did. Just sailed round the skerries around the outside of it, and then bore away, sailed through, and out the other side. Out of the bottom of the anchorage, the southern entrance, back onto the wind again, and heading towards the somewhat more scattered group of islands, the Summer Isles, towards the southwest of the main group. So that's Priest Island, the larger one that you can see in the distance there.
Did I just upset the locals or something? These 3 terns here decided that the right thing to do this morning would be to try and remove my VHF antenna from the top of the mast. Fortunately, they didn't succeed. Once clear of the Summer Isles and the marauding tern thugs, it was then a long, long beat to get round first Greenstone Point, then past the entrance to Loch Ewe, and then around finally past the lighthouse of Ruaraig, before I could then head south towards Loch Gairloch again. I didn't go into Loch Gairloch. Instead, we anchored at Longer Island. There's a nice little bay that was suitable for the wind direction that we had. And there I met these guys who are attempting to get round Britain the long way by rowing round. They seem pretty confident of getting all the way round in the next couple of weeks, so good speed to them. Very little wind the next day, so I decided to just sail into Gairloch and do a little bit of a resupply run. A real drift to begin with. I was able to lock the tiller and live out one of my fantasies, which is to do the whole Kate Winslet thing in the bow. So there we go with that. And then a gentle drift back in more and more sunshine and a fabulous sunset to wrap the day up with. Really, really enjoyable day, even though the distance covered was relatively small. Day 10 was the day that we went foreign. A soggy start, not much wind, turned into a sunny start with not much wind. Well, it's official. I'm going upwind slower than an apple core. Not sure how I'm managing that. Does seem to be a little bit of breeze coming down, but maybe that's just some optimism coming down. We'll see. And wind it was indeed. And when it arrived, it seemed to provoke a sudden outburst of activity from the local animal population. Who knows what luckless species of fish was at the bottom of this food chain, but there was gannets diving into the water everywhere, shearwaters, guillemots, dolphins, and all seemed to be thrashing around in the breeze and the sunshine and enjoying it just as much as I was. As you can see from the last clip, the wind died again and really turned into a sort of quite fitful on again, off again breeze for the next couple of hours. Eventually some rain clouds gathered over Skye and they brought some duller weather for sure, as well as a bit of rain, but most notably a decent bit of wind, and we were able to make really good speed for the rest of the trip into the Isle of Skye. By the time I got my act together enough to leave Port Govleg, there was a fair bit of tide running northeast up the Minch and curling clockwise around the tip of Skye and being funneled between the tip of Skye that I was on and Elen Trodaig, which is the little sort of skerry with a lighthouse on it that's just ahead of us here. And the tide was funneling through the gap reasonably quickly. I didn't think that we would be able to make against it as it was upwind. Yes, there was some wind and we might have managed it. So I decided to go round the back of the island and try heading up tide somewhere a little further offshore where perhaps it wasn't quite so quick. Might not have been the best decision, and I ended up being set quite a way down tide before I was able to put a tack in and find enough wind to carry me in a more sort of southwesterly direction.
Well, this is frustrating. 10 minutes ago, I had one reef in the main, half the jib up, thinking about putting the second reef into the main. And then within a matter of minutes, we end up with this. And what's most annoying about it is that
I'd like to head up to try and get a bit more apparent wind over the boat. But the waves are coming from behind us slightly. So luffing up to get the rig to work properly puts the boat side onto the waves and you get all this lot happening. So I suppose not really a lot we can do. Sit and wait. And it is quite funny, look around and everywhere it looks like there's some breeze, apart from a sort of 100-yard radius disc centred on this particular boat. Scotland, eh? Ay, ay, ay. I don't know a lot of Shakespeare, but Mr. Bell, if you're still with us on this earth, you'll be very proud of me, because I can remember, and I am reminded today, of the opening scene of Merchant of Venice, where I think it is Bassanio is trying to diagnose Antonio's poor mental health and suggests that Antonio's mind is tossing on the ocean, where his gallant argosies with portly sail do overpeer the petty traffickers. Well, I can definitely see over there an argosy with a portly spinnaker thrashing along, overpeering me, who am definitely in the position of the petty trafficker. Now, why did that come to my mind? Who knows? They say there's a Shakespeare quote for every occasion. Well, there you go, it's taken me, what must it be, 45 years or so to find the use for it. And here it is. A lesson learned, or relearned really, and that is that you take whatever the weather gives you, because something will come out of it. So it's all gone calm, as you can see, and yet I've just spent the last hour or so sailing through the biggest flotilla of seabirds that I have ever seen. Puffins, shearwaters by the score, razorbillions, it's the collective noun for shearwater, a sheer flood. And a couple of gannets were in there as well, just to be sociable. And a couple of, at least 2, possibly 3 minke whales. They seem very camera shy and don't seem to spend anything like enough time at the surface to allow one to get a picture of them, but this is astonishing. And I've just been looking it up. I'm heading towards the Ascrib Isles, so Uig is just over there, and it would seem that the Ascribs are a place where these guys breed, certainly the puffins. There's one right in front of us now that, yeah, he's got out of the way, good. Would never want to run over a puffin. Hey fella, there's one right there. Bunch of guillemots over there in the background. huge hoard over there, which I don't suppose you'll be able to pick out on my phone. But yeah, probably one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen. Ever. Yeah. And all because the wind dropped. Otherwise I would have gone steaming past and gone round that headland over there and not seen any of it.
It took a little while, but eventually got to the northernmost Ascrib Island, which is called Ellen Ishal, which apparently means low-lying island, which is kind of what it is. Once the local immigration forces had checked us out, settled down there for the night.